Hi everyone, I'm Nikita. I'm from the Quiet Pathfinder Club, and I think most of you know me. Today I'll be talking about Dunes Pathfinder Honor, which is done online. There are some requirements which you can go visit in the desert and collect sand and stuff. That comes in requirement number 12. So there are about 12 requirements in this honor, and if you want to get this honor, please listen and watch the video. Okay, so let's start. Requirement number 1, what are dunes? What is the primary ingredient of the dunes? So now, if you can see by this picture itself, we can understand that dunes are made of sand. So the answer to that are dunes are unstable hills or mountain-sized formation composed entirely of sand. So they're hilly formations of sand. Dunes come in many shapes, occurs in variety of climates, and are constantly changing. The sand type colors also vary with the geographic location and geological history. So the sand color varies from place to place depending upon their geography or location. Sand dunes are formed along seacoast, lake shores, deserts, river valleys, and river valleys. So the three main points to take over here. Dunes are unstable hills or mountain-sized formation composed entirely of sand. Dunes come in many shapes and occur in variety of climates and are constantly changing. Sand types and colors varies with the geographic location and geological history. So, name 4 items that are needed for dune formation. The 4 items, the major items that are needed for dune formation. There are 4 things needed in order for a dune to be formed. Sand and a lot of sand. Any type of sand. It can be desert sand. Mostly you see more dunes in the desert. If you go for camping in Kuwait, even there you can see a lot of sand. And if you go through I think I went to a camp and there was like this big dune. It was so beautiful to see. It was like a big hill of sand. So that's what a dune is. Space to put the sand, wind from predominantly from one direction to the next. So wind should flow from one direction to the next. So the sand flows down and makes a hill formation. Water and wave action in coastal areas. Explain the following 3 ways that wind moves the sand. So there are 3 ways that the wind moves the sand from one point to another point, from A to B. So there are 3 ways that wind moves the sand: through a surface creep, through saltation, and through suspension. So let's take a look at each of them. Surface creep. Dunes are formed by the surface creep by particles of sand rolling along the ground. This is the slowest method of dune formation. So surface creep is the most slowest. So the sand particle comes over here, then goes over here. It's very slow. Through sand itself, it keeps moving. So that's known as surface creep. Saltation. Dunes are formed by particles of sand jumping along the regular intervals. This method of dune formation is faster than the surface creep, but slower than suspension. So it is slower than suspension, but faster than surface creep. Let's see what saltation does. So saltation takes one sand particle, moves it to the next, and then keeps making the same particle jump along with other particles. So if you've seen sand and you have touched sand, you can see that it's a small granule of sand. So it takes a small granule of sand and then moves it from one point to another point. That's saltation. Suspension. Dunes are formed by particles of sand fully airborne and can travel a long distance before landing. This is the fastest method of dune formation. So suspension is the fastest method of dune formation. How does it work? It is fully airborne. So the wind. Suspension is through the wind. So sand particles fly through the wind. Example, sandstorms. A great example for suspension is a sandstorm. And I think most of us living in the Arab regions know that Sand is everywhere and we have sandstorms all the time. So I'm going to explain the following dune formation. So there are different types of dune formations. I think I'm going to explain 3 or 4 of them. Let's get into it. Dunes arrange themselves in a variety of shapes, as listed below. There are 5 general categories, and within each category are simple, compound, and complex. So there's simple, compound, and complex type of formation. There's the Barchans, which is going to be the first one. There's the star dunes, which is going to be the second one. There's the linear and longitudinal dunes. This is going to be the third one. And there's the fourth, which is the parabolic dune formation. And there's the fifth, which is the dome dune formation. So there are 5 types, and I'll be explaining all 5 of them. Okay, the Barchans. This dune formation is found in Morocco. Barchans are the most mobile of all dune types, migrating many feet every year. They have what are called tips or horns pointing downwind and are wider and then they are very long. So these Barchans are wider than being very long. They're the most mobile of all dune types. They migrate many feet every year. So this dune formation keeps migrating many feet every year. So we can say this dune keeps moving. And they have what are called the horn pointing to a downwind. So this is the horn and this is going down. So they also cause the sand avalanche and due to the dune movement. And this face over here is known as a stip face. This is known as a Barchan dune. Star dunes, similar like the Barchans, they will have 4 sides. This only has 3 sides, but the star dunes will have 4 sides. You can see that's 1, 2, and a 3 and a 4. So star dunes are the least mobile of all dune types. Due to the changing wind patterns, they keep it basically in one place. The ridges are the shapes of stars. So there's 1, there's 2, and there's 3, and there's a 4. So these ridges are in the shape of a star, formed by wind blowing in several directions. So in Barchans, there's only wind flowing in one direction. But in star dunes, there's wind coming in both the directions or from several directions. And so the sand is pushed up into a star formation. These are known as star dunes. Linear or longitudinal dunes. Linear or longitudinal dunes are long, deep troughs forming many straight rows. You can see this is a picture taken from very high. I think it's a picture taken from a helicopter. Linear or longitudinal dunes are long, deep troughs forming many straight rows, all due to strong winds that allows blow in one direction. So there's only formation of this linear and longitudinal due to there's only one wind and this is only going in one direction. So it's not like the other two. The Parabonical Dunes. The Parabonical Dunes are transitional dunes between transverse and longitudinal dunes. They feature U-shaped depressions and slip faces and the outer edges and over the top, also called blowout. Winds come from one direction only and the structure is stabilized by vegetation on both sides. This is common in the coastal areas. So the Parabonical Dune is a transitional between the transverse and the longitudinal dunes. So the Parabonical Dune, you can see there's a small curve over here. That's known as a Parabonical Dune. Dome dunes are circular or oval mounds with no slip face. So you can see this is a smaller dune, but this large dune over here is known as the dome dune. So those are the 5 types of dune. Coming to the 5th requirement, what is the ecological succession? How is this demonstrated in the dune communities? Succession is where one community naturally changes over time and finally is replaced by a different community. The major steps in succession found in dune communities are listed below. Beech. This is the beach in Poliano or Gae. So it is a beach. I think most of us have gone to beaches, especially in Kuwait. There's a small beach and you can go there and have fun. Okay, let's not get more into that. Beach. There is little or no time for plants to take hold. There are no plants near the beaches. Plants and animals that live here must be able to grow in sand. Desert-like conditions. There's relentless wind, extreme temperatures, and intense sunlight. Scavengers of all levels of the food chain visit regularly to eat remains of the washed dead birds, fishes, and animals and insects. So scavengers are mostly seen in beaches. The beach is generally divided into lower, middle, and upper sections. Now, this is found in New Zealand. These dunes closest to the beach and water, they receive direct impact of storms. This level has some plant species which are slow and wind-driven sand and allows dunes to be formed. Open sand is pretty much covered, yet very sensitive to human disturbance. Sometimes winter storms can send waves or spray up into the zone. Now, coming to an internal wetland at Miller Woods in Indiana Dunes, which is in National Lakeshore in the Miller Beach area of Gary, Indiana. These form a valley of trough between dunes. Frequently, this is at the water table and is often host to wetlands and small inland lakes, and also home to unique and rare or endangered species. The Dune Forest, a pine forest growing on sand dunes. These are found several hundred meters away from shore and left undisturbed, and can produce a sufficient layer for topsoil to support climax species such as large trees and a large variety of plants and animal species. Equilibrium has been established, so no one species are said to come in. So there are different types of dune formations in all these different type of places. Sixth question. What is dune blowout? How does it relate to succession? A dune blowout. Dune blowouts are open in sand areas that are trough or are in a saucer shape. In other words, they are stable and have no plant covering them. The wind combined with vegetation instability is to blame. So wind and vegetation, which is not there, the wind combined with vegetation instability. So there is a vegetable instability and there's a lot of wind which causes a dune blowout. Blowouts can be caused by fires, plant diseases, windstorms, grazing of animals, human disturbances such as hiking or marked trails, off-road vehicles, and clearing the areas to build homes. Blowouts eventually stabilize. Which are farther from the coast, they recover due to the lessened speed of the wind. Pioneer plants are first disturbed and then shrubs and trees. Blowouts cause a complete reversal of succession back to stage one. The best way to help a dune is to stay on the trails. So what are pioneer plants? What is their purpose in dune communities? Give two examples. So pioneer plants are fast growing and are responsible for initial dune stabilization. Dune stability would be literally impossible without these pioneer plants. This is the second point, I can see it here. They must be able to withstand very harsh conditions: water spray, blowing of wind, drifting of sand, low nutrient levels, flooding, extreme temperature changes, high wind for long periods of time, desert-like dryness, and high salt levels. There's a fast reproduction and a colonizing are must for these dune plants. The root system is are uniquely specialized to grow both down and across very quickly with new shoots popping out at regular intervals. This allows large areas of sands to be stabilized in a short period of time. The purpose is to trap blowing and drifting sand. These plants are all about business, and these have long roots that increase moisture absorption. Often they are covered in waxy coatings and they retain water, and they have unpleasant rolled leaves or smaller coatings and are unpleasant to taste to herbivores. They have longevity and have thick, scaly stems or barks which are stable, and some of them have pretty flowers, but others do not. So let's take a look at these plants which are found in dunes. So, beech grass or the marham grass. Beech grass or the marham grass, always found in this zone directly behind the beach, thrives in drifting sand. A very stiff type of grass with a very extensive underground root system which is capable of sending new shoots up at any point. It has it has teeth of grass pointing upwards. And in the teeth of the grass, it has a very sharp tip. Also has a seed head or spike. American sea rocket. It is found on the seashores and coastal dune communities on a worldwide scale. It is waxy to touch, it has thick leaves, and it has a tiny flower clusters and are light purple to white, depending on geographical locations. This plant bears two sectional fruits. The seed falls out on the membrane that holding the seeds, they stay attached, and that's how they reproduce. Beech morning glory. The beech morning glory, a vine that grows in the beach and fordew habits, tolerate salted air. The seeds flow and are not damaged by salt or water. The flowers are insect pollinated. So they reproduce themselves by insects and by pollination. So not like normal plants. So eighth requirement, give 3 examples of plant in dune environments. How are they adapted for survival? The cottonwood tree. The tree has an ability to grow roots at any point of its buried trunk. They grow rapidly from the top. It is very difficult to determine the true height of these trees due to what is buried below the dune. Only the top might be exposed of a large mature tree. Commonly, they are found in Lake Michigan sands or in dune environments. The shore pine. It is native to the western United States. This tree is often found in sandy environments and coastal sand dunes of the Pacific Ocean. This tree is most often found with the strange forms. They are stunned to growth and have deformities as a result of undirectional strong winds. The shrub communities where this tree grows are usually 1 to 3 meters long and high, and they are very quickly developing into shore pine forests. So shore pine, they can almost go into very large amounts and very large quantities that they make up a forest. The century plant, it is native to the southwestern United States and the northern Mexico. This plant easily keeps up with the constant blowing and drifting of sand. They thrive on sandy slopes and dry, rocky environments. Their root system is widespread. Dense mass just below the surface has to absorb any moisture also to stabilize the terrain. This plant can grow 2 inches per day. The flowering stalk can grow 1 foot per day. Some heights of this mature plant ranges from 50 to 30 feet tall. They bloom just once in their lives. Their pale yellow flowers are bat pollinated. So they need bats to be pollinated to reproduce, and they only bloom once every Yeah, they only bloom once. They bloom just once in their lives. So their flowers just bloom once in their life, and that's how they reproduce. So I think when they bloom once, that's the time for their offspring. The pitcher's thistle. This plant grows on the shorelines or in the sand dunes of the Great Lakes in the states of Michigan, Indiana, Wisconsin, Ontario, and Canada. It is, oh, wait, I've seen this. It is threatened, it is a threatened species on federal and state levels. In Michigan, in Michigan, it is the most, you can see it everywhere. That's what they meant. Michigan contains the most locations. The pitcher's thistle has a taproot capable of going 6 feet down into the sand, and blue-green plant parts are covered in silvery hairs to reflect the bright sun and retain water. So they're a little bit of bluish green in color. They have silvery hairs to reflect the bright sun and retain their water within the plant. The plant may grow up to about 3 feet tall with leaves up to 12 inches long high. The plant may take two to 2 to 8 years to mature to the flowering stage and produces white flowers. So this is the last plant, the pitcher's thistle. Requirement number 9. Give 5 examples of animal species in dune environments. How are they unique for living in these dune communities? Reptiles, amphibians, birds, spiders, insects, crustaceans, and mammals can survive in the dunes. Interesting fact, right? Just like plants, geography, the amount of moisture, the climate has everything to do with what an animal species are found and how they are adapted to the environment. Let's take a look at some of these animals. The ant lion. An ant lion is an insect that makes a funnel-shaped craters in very soft sand. So this, you can see it's almost like camouflage, but this is the insect right here. They are about 2 centimeters across and 2 centimeters deep. They are ferocious looking larvae hidden in the sand at the bottom, and they wait patiently for something to walk past and fall in to be ambushed. So they wait for anything smaller than them to eat. The antlion larvae react very well to false stimulation. That there has been a capture coming out into full view. They are common in Great Lake dunes and throughout the United States. So they're very common where I'm living right now. The western snowy plover. The western snowy plover, a shorebird about the size of a sparrow found on the coastal beaches, dunes, and near stream in tells of California and Oregon. They, they make their nest on the open sand, coming back to the same area year after year. So they come back to the same sand year after year. Due to habitat loss, disturbances, and predation, these birds are fairly threatened. So due to predators, they are very threatened, and due to habitat loss, disturbance, and predation, these birds are really threatened. The Carnera Melisa blue butterfly. The Carner Melisa blue butterfly, a federally listed as an endangered butterfly, is common to the west of the United States and endangered or exploited in the east. The caterpillars, their caterpillars feed slowly on the leaves of the wide lupine, rattle leaves, and other legumes. It is also found in the savanna habitat and is crucial for this butterfly's survival. They are they have prescribed burns and are necessarily to keep in the woody and in an invasive species to be always checked upon. The amount of wild lupines and butterfly populations are directly connected. There is a population in the Indiana dunes where there are several organizations and volunteers working together to ensure the survival of this community and their species. The odd kangaroo rat. The odd kangaroo rat is the most widespread species of the kangaroo rat. They hop on their hind legs like tiny kangaroos using their long tails for balance. They are very capable of jumping 5 feet or more in one leap to escape danger. They sleep in burrows during the day, coming out mostly at night to feed on seeds. They are frequently their only source of moisture. They carry many seeds in pouches in their cheeks to store in their burrows. They are common in open sand, grassland, and sag bush flats. Pine and they are found in pine variety of woodlands. The horned viper. The horned viper is a snake which is a sidewinder, meaning it uses its head and its tail to move their body sideways. It uses camouflage so that it is in the same color as the surrounding. Usually sand, it lives in the northern Africa deserts. The horned viper is a very ferocious creature. You can see it has two horns and eyes looking very devilish. So, the camel, which is the most common to the Kuwait and common to the Arab countries. Camel, its length is about 9 feet, height 7 feet at the shoulder. This mammal is characterized by long legs, a long curved back neck, long eyelashes, and small ears. You can see the small ears. I think most of us who have lived in the Arab regions have once in our life seen camels because there are people riding them, there are people racing with them, there's so many things they do with them. There's even camel meat and there's camel milk. So we if you have not seen a camel and you're living in an Arab country, please, you're missing out something. They have the ability to close their nostrils against blowing sand and can eat hard, thorny vegetation. They store energy in their humps and can manage losing more water than any other domestic animal. In fact, camels can tolerate water loss equivalent over 1 by 3 of their body weight. All these characteristics combined with their two-toed feet with webbing make them the great animals for crossing great deserts and climbing over immense sand dunes. They are used for police patrol in the Arab countries and in the cool season have been documented to walk 620 miles on a single journey over several days with very little or no water at all. They can drink over 20 gallons of water in a very short time. So these are the amazing creatures of our Middle East. So let's move to the last animal, which is known as the Atlantic ghost crab. And the Atlantic ghost crab feeds at night. It also digs burrows up to 4 feet down and 1.5 miles away from the shore. They are scavengers and have fantastic ability to live far away from water. They only return to wet its gills, and they can also do this in wet sand. And they reproduce their offspring in the wet sand. So we are going to question number 10, then question number 11, and question number 12, and we're done with this honor. Okay, question number 10. Discover an early pioneer of the dune management and conservation within your conference, union, or division. Share your discovery with an instructor or a group. That's why I am going to be presenting about what I need to be presenting to you guys right now. So, Henry Chandler course is the one I'm presenting, and this is in the website in Wikipedia. So, 1869 to 1939. He is also known as the father of plant ecology. He was an ecologist, a botanist, a conservationist, and a field teacher for the University of Chicago in the botany department. His work of many years led to the establishment of the Indiana Dunes in the state park on August 25, 1916. This eventually grew and became the Indiana Dunes National Lakeshore in 1966. So that's about Henry Chandler Coase. So Now I'm going to explain a short story, and I think most of us know these two stories, and I will derive a spiritual lesson from within these stories. So, my first story comes from the chapter of the Bible from Matthew chapter 7, verse 24 to 7. I read, "Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock." Verse 25. Then the rain came down and the streams rose, and the wind blew and beat against this house. Yet it did not fall, because it had the foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man building his house on the sand. The rain came down and the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house, and it fell with a great crash. So, question for today: where would you build a house? Would you build it on sand or would you build it on a rock? Of course, the simple answer is we build it on rock, because if we do not want a house to fall on top of us, then we have to build it on the rock. Just like that, as for our spiritual lesson, we should build our lives on Jesus Christ. We should have our foundation built on Him so that we grow with Him, learn with Him, and live our lives just as an example, like how Jesus lived. And to show others that we are the living proof for being Christians and we are to be like Jesus. So we should always build our house on Jesus Christ. So these are I've given two pictures over here. One house is built on sand. One house is built near the trees where it is woody and they have a strong foundation. So don't be like this person building it on the sand. Now the second lesson is from First Kings chapter 4 verse 29. And God gave Solomon the wisdom and understanding exceeding much and largeness of heart, even as the sand that is on the seashore. So God gave Solomon wisdom and understanding exceeding so much, just like the sand which is there on the seashore. Have you ever tried counting a handful of sand or a pinch of sand? Imagining trying to count the sand in the sandbox or at a beach. It is nearly or totally impossible, even with a microscope, not to mention how much time it would take. However, in observing sand grains up close, you can see that they have different shapes and colors and sizes. So over here, a person is holding up a grain of sand. You can see that you can see white sand over here and a little bit of brown sand and a little bit of darker colors inside. However, in observing sand grains up close, you can see that they have different shapes, colors, sizes, and textures. Rub it between your fingers and it feels smooth, yet it feels rough. Sand is so much fun to play with and dig in. That's why children love to play in the sand. And they make sand castles out of it. Bury your hands in the sand and bury your legs also and your feet. So you'll feel pretty good. I've seen a lot of pictures where people bury themselves in sand and they feel, I think it's used for medical treatments also in therapy sessions and whatever. Sand is used to make glass, bricks, and even landscaping that is abrasive and used for polishing and sandblasting. Dump trucks spread sand on icy roads to improve wheel traction. Sandbags ward off rising waters and floods. And if sand is mixed with cement and in water to make concrete for sidewalks and buildings. Sand grains do not weigh very much, but a bucketful can weigh very heavy. Lots of sand in big piles is called dunes, with wind has an essential part of it forming the shape and the type of dune. Life is like a sand dune. The sand grains are our daily activities, how we treat each other, what we watch and listen to, what we put into our minds, and even how we take care of ourselves. The winds are like problems, which will come and go and be very strong at times. They shape and strengthen our stability in our lives, just like how a dune stabilizes itself. And in your dune, you will determine by how your relationship with Jesus is. Just like the pineal plants and forest of dunes that stabilizes the sand, our spirituality and faith with our spirituality and our faith should stabilize us for eternity and our life in heaven. So we have finished 11 requirements. The 12th requirement is for us to watch a video, which I'll be doing in part 2 with our assignments. So see you in part 2. Thank you for watching and listening.